Day 3 on the Majestic Princess, and our first port of call was Gibraltar. We kicked off the day with another lazy morning and a relaxed breakfast at the buffet. Since we'd visited Gibraltar before, there was no rush to get off the ship. The morning started with light rain, but soon enough the sun broke through and the day turned beautiful. We spent a couple of hours strolling around town, even popping into the local Marks and Spencers just for fun. On our previous visit, we've explored the famous mountain, met the mischievous monkeys, and visited the underground theatre. This time, we opted for a simple wander before heading back to the ship. We joined the crowd for the sail away, and then we headed back to our cabin for, you guessed it, tea, cake, and a movie. This time, we watched Conclave, which kept us engaged throughout. The evening's big show in the Princess Theatre was a Cher impersonator. And wow, she was fantastic. Not only did she look and sound exactly like Cher, but her comedic timing and witty jokes between songs had us thoroughly entertained. We were all amazed to learn she was actually British. Her American accent was flawless. The disco in the atrium didn't spark our interest, so it's back to the cabin for more tea and cake and another episode of The Love Boat to round off our evening. This cruise was shaping up to be more about rest and relaxation than late night partying. And honestly, sometimes that's just what you need. Today was day 4 on the Majestic Princess, and it was a sea day. That meant a slower pace, lots of relaxation, and of course, some entertainment. We started the day with a late breakfast in the buffet because, well, we're on a cruise. No rushing around, just a nice leisurely morning enjoying some delicious food. After breakfast, we joined a fun dance class in the piazza. These dance classes during the day are much busier than they are during the evening. It was a lot of fun. The sun was out, so we spent time out on deck, just soaking it all in. The movie playing on the big screen was Inside Out too, and it was a sweet little film. Perfect for a relaxed afternoon at sea. After spending a little time in the pool, we headed back to our room for a shower and a movie. We watched The Substance starring Demi Moore, and, well, I don't understand all the hype about this movie. The evening's main show in the Princess Theatre was called Fiero, and it was a take on The Greatest Showman. The singing was excellent, but the production itself felt a little bit overdone. Later that evening, we caught an Irish singer performing in the Vista Lounge. It was her debut on this stage, because she usually sings in the cruise ship pub. She seemed a little nervous at first, but wow, could she sing. The audience loved her performance, and we were so glad we got to see it. As usual, our evening ended early with a slice of cake and a cup of tea. It was midnight. Wow, so early. Day 5 on the Majestic Princess, and our port of call was the beautiful island of Corsica. The weather? Absolutely perfect. Warm sunshine, a gentle breeze, ideal for sightseeing. We started our adventure with a 90-minute tour of Ajaccio aboard the Little Tram of Ajaccio. This charming ride took us through the town as a pre-recorded guide, speaking in both English and French, pointed out key landmarks. We made a stop at the impressive Napoleon Monument, a tribute to the island's most famous son. Then we travelled along the Sanguinary Road, where we caught a distant view of a lighthouse standing against the rugged coastline. Back in town, we wandered through the narrow winding streets, taking in the charm of local life. One friendly shopkeeper even gave us a mini history lesson where we learned about the Moor warrior, a fascinating piece of Corsican history. Back on board, it was time for some food. We headed to Chopstick's Noodle Bar to try their fantastic noodles. While we were there, a staff member mentioned that the venue would soon be closing to make way for a pizzeria. Tonight was formal night, or at least it was supposed to be, but not too many passengers actually dressed up. Dinner, however, was the highlight of the evening. Lobster and beef tenderloin, both absolutely incredible. Easily the best meal of the cruise so far. Entertainment, on the other hand, well, that's another story. In the Princess Theatre, we sat through a juggling act. Apparently, the performer had been on X Factor or some similar competition show. But let's just say, a 10-minute act stretched into 45 minutes felt far too long. Over in the comedy lounge, The comedians seemed to struggle with nerves, making for an awkward and not so funny performance. It was another early night for us, back to our cabin for tea, cake, and TV. Day 6 on the Majestic Princess, and our port of call is the historic city of Genoa in Italy. Armed with a free map, we wandered through the old town, a maze of narrow streets and hidden corners. It was fascinating to see how some of the ancient buildings had been seamlessly integrated into the modern cityscape, a blend of old and new standing side by side. One of the highlights was a beautiful water fountain, a striking centerpiece of the city. We also strolled down the main shopping street, taking in the sights and atmosphere. During our walk, we came across an enormous ship, reminiscent of the pirate ship straight out of Pirates of the Caribbean. Quite a sight. We also passed the aquarium, though we didn't go inside this time. By 3:30 we were back on the ship. We got lunch from the buffet and headed back to our cabin, where we watched a couple of movies. We watched Moana 2 and A Real Pain, neither of which were particularly great, but they passed the time. The main show in the Princess Theatre this evening was from Rachel Haunt, the Cher impersonator we'd seen a few nights ago. This time it was a full production called Devolution, where she performed songs from legendary artists like Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, Tina Turner, and more. Her voice was incredible, though she still kind of looked and sounded like Cher. It was a great evening. Over in the Comedy Lounge, the show was not that great, so it was another early night for us. Back in our cabin, we unwound with a cup of tea, some cake, and an episode of Star Trek Voyager before calling it a night. Day 7 on the Majestic Princess, and our port of call is Livorno and Pisa in Italy. After a late breakfast, we got on the free shuttle bus which took us to Livorno centre. To get to Pisa, we took the local bus to Livorno train station, which was about a 10 to 15 minute ride. Then we got on the train, which was about a 20-minute ride to Pisa. It had been 6 or 7 years since we last visited, and things had definitely changed. It was a lot busier this time, with more barriers, more tourists, and plenty of extra tables outside restaurants. We walked around the main square, snapped the classic Leaning Tower of Pisa photos, and explored the small marketplace, where I bought a little memento before we headed back to the train station. Back on the ship, we grabbed some lunch and watched a movie in our cabin. It was Fly Me to the Moon with Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum. A sweet little film that left me smiling. Tonight's main show in the Princess Theatre was cancelled due to a sick cast member. Since there wasn't enough time to put together a new lineup, they let the piano player from one of the bars take over the main stage instead. A small thank you ceremony was held in the atrium, where a selection of staff came out to be recognised for their service. It was a lovely gesture, and the best thing of all, there was free champagne. With no other entertainment on offer, we headed back to our cabin at around 10:30. After packing our luggage, we did what had become our nightly tradition, drank tea, ate cake, and watched a movie. Tonight's pick? Gladiator 2. Day 8 on the Majestic Princess. Time to disembark and head for Rome. The ship arrived in Civitavecchia. This is where we all had to disembark. We needed to get to the train station. Princess Cruises organised shuttle buses, but the queues were huge. Luckily, the sun was shining, making the 20-minute walk to the train station a pleasant one. The town itself looked like a charming place to explore, but with limited time we had to keep moving. A quick 45-minute train ride for just €4.60 and we arrived at Rome's central station. First stop, the luggage storage. For just €6 we left our bags behind, freeing us up to explore the city without any extra weight. Definitely worth it. Armed with a basic map from the tourist office, we narrowed down our must-see list to 3 iconic sites: the Colosseum, the Trevi Fountain, and Vatican City. The Colosseum was our first stop. Conveniently located right opposite the metro station, it was easy to find. Standing in front of this ancient amphitheatre felt surreal, especially since we had just watched the Gladiator movie on the ship the night before. Next, the Trevi Fountain. It took us a little while to find, as it's tucked away from the main streets. And when we finally arrived, we were surprised by how much smaller it looked in real life. Years ago, you could sit along the fountain's edge, but now with so many visitors, there were queues just to get close. We opted for photos from a distance, which was good enough for us. Before leaving, we treated ourselves to an authentic Italian gelato, and oh, was it worth it! The perfect sweet break before our final stop, Vatican City. The Vatican was a bit of a walk from the metro, but the journey was worth every step. Security was tight, airport-style barriers and bag scans, but once inside, the grandeur of the place was breathtaking. St. Peter's Basilica was absolutely stunning. We took a moment to light a couple of candles and reflect, paying our respects to loved ones. It was a quiet, solemn moment in the midst of our whirlwind day. Very happy with our sightseeing, we made our way back to the main station, collected our luggage and purchased our train tickets to the airport. We had two options, the express train for €16 or the slower train for €8. Since we had a lot of time to spare, we chose the cheaper option. At first, figuring out the right platform was a little stressful. We didn't realise that we had to switch trains, but once we sorted it out, we were on our way to the airport and we got there with plenty of time to spare. A few hours later, we were on our EasyJet flight London bound. The journey was smooth and by 11:30 p.m. we were home. The first thing I did? Unpack and make a nice cup of tea. The perfect end to our Majestic Cruise adventure. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you in the next video.